Hello, everybody, and welcome to First Canada Alumni Corner, an exciting and informative series of virtual coffee chat style info sessions and workshops presented by accomplished First Robotics Canada alumni. This program is designed to empower current students as well as alumni with the knowledge, skills, and insights they need to succeed in their transition from being team members, being part of our incredible First Robotics Canada alumni network, and succeed within it. I'm your host, Jaylene Kostelski, fellow First Canada alum and our volunteer and alumni manager here at First Robotics Canada. We'll get started with a quick land acknowledgement. As Canadians, it is important to recognize the land of which we are part of. As we gather for this meeting, physically dispersed and virtually constructed, let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of place, and in doing so, recognize the various traditional lands on which we celebrate today. We acknowledge the elders and youth, past, present, and emerging of all the land on which we work and live. We honor the ancestral spirits with gratitude and respect. We acknowledge this land out of respect for the Indigenous nations who have cared for Turtle Island, also called North America. The Indigenous people have been gifted the role of caretakers of this land before the arrival of settler peoples until today. But most importantly, we remember the history of these lands and people that have been tainted by poor treatment and a lack of friendship with the First Nations who called Canada home before it was given this name. This history is something that everyone is affected by. We are all treaty people in Canada. We all have a shared history to reflect on, and each of us is affected by this history in different ways. Our past defines our present, but if we move forward as friends and allies, it does not define our future. Thanks. So today our topic is scholarship application strategies, and we're going to cover topics like importance of your first story, application process, tips and resources, First Canada scholarships, First HQ scholarship portal, and of course, networking opportunities. Throughout the show, if you have any questions, post them in the chat or raise your hand. And today we have three special guests that I'm very excited to get started with today. So we'll start with Michelle.
Thanks, Jaylene. Hi, my name is Michelle Lung. I lead Alumni Relations from FIRST headquarters down in the States. I'm physically located in New Hampshire, which is on the East Coast. So thank you for having me. Part of my role is the FIRST Scholarship Program. So excited to share a little bit about that tonight. And I'll hand it over to Vanshika.
Hi, everyone. I'm Vanshika. My alumni team is Team 2056. I was on the team for about 4 years. I was also part of the First Canada Youth Council. And right now I'm at the University of Toronto, where I'm studying mechanical engineering. I finished my second year, and now I'm doing my 16-month co-op placement at Pratt & Whitney. And then I'll be going back for another 2 years.
Awesome. And hey, everyone. My name is Tyler. I'm in my third year of computer engineering at McMaster University. When I was in high school, I was part of Team 4069, a team that I now go back to assist in mentoring. As I mentioned, I'm in my third year. I've also I've been heavily involved with FIRST scholarships, winning a FIRST scholarship at McMaster, as well as the Schulich Leader Scholarship. So happy to talk to you guys about any questions you have regarding the scholarship application process tonight. Awesome. And with that, we can get going into a couple of things that Vanshika and I have prepared for tonight. We have a couple of slides, but it's very informal. So again, feel free to drop any questions in the chat, and we can definitely get into addressing those. So Vanshika, do you want to start by chatting a little bit about FIRST and its impact on you?
Yes, as you can see by the left-hand side, that is my team. That was in my grade 12 year when we were at Ontario Champs, and we had just won, and it was a very, very exciting championship, and it was very sad because it was my last time and first time going to competition, because a lot of my time on the team was during COVID. So, but I was the team captain in grade 12. I was also the operator on my team. So I was always behind the glass, always like in the moment, just strategizing and also coaching during the matches. So if you replay matches from back then, you could see me running around at the back of the field, pointing like crazy, yelling at the driver, telling them where to go. And I think a lot of those things in the moment didn't feel like they would impact me in the future, but they really did. I learned like a great amount on how to problem solve in the moment. Because when you're on that field behind the glass, you can't step away for 5 minutes to think about what you're going to do next. You have to do what you need to do in that moment. And, whatever move you make is going to impact if your score goes up by like 10 or 15 points, or if you're going to lose by 10 or 15 points. And, being able to think on the spot really helped me when I was doing my university applications, because as many of you will realize, or many of you know already, a lot of the interviews for universities include like video interviews. So you'll be sitting there and then you'll get a prompt saying, what's your favorite color? And then you have like 3 minutes to talk about what your favorite color is, why it's your favorite color. And all the way that you answer the question really shows the university how you think, how you really get to your answer and what your logical thinking is to get to the answer, even if the question is silly. And, being an operator and being on the field really helped me learn how to answer questions really quickly and how to be very concise in my answers as well. And I also did a bunch of like design presentations, such as the game design challenge during COVID. I also did a bunch of judged awards presentations, and I was a Dean's List semifinalist in grade 10 in Ontario. So I had to go through a lot of interview processes where I was sitting on, the other side of the screen, and I was being asked super crazy questions that I didn't even know about. I couldn't prepare for these questions at all either. And so, I made my mistakes then, sometimes I would stutter, sometimes be nervous, sometimes I would say the completely wrong thing and then realize afterwards, oh my God, Vanshika, why'd you say that? That was so wrong. But then, going through that iterative process of constantly going through interviews and questions, it kind of helped me get better. So now when I'm going into an interview for my co-op position, I already know how to answer all the questions that are going to be thrown at me, regardless of if I know the content of the interview at all. I'm just able to think on the spot, and I'm able to be confident in my answers. Even if I know my answers are wrong, I can be confident and say, you know what? I know my answer is wrong, but here's the thinking that went behind my answer. And that really helps. And, you know, as you'll see later on in our presentation, those logical thinking skills, those problem solving skills, and being able to be concise in your answers and communicate whether you're wrong or you're right will help you in your interview processes and your scholarships. But I know Tyler has also had a lot of experience in that, so I'll let him talk about that too.
Yeah, I do. I echo a lot of Vanshika's comments there. Like Vanshika, I was also heavily involved with the Dean's List process. I was a Dean's List finalist for FTC in my grade 11 year, and a Dean's List semifinalist for FRC. So had a lot of experience again sitting through that interview process, and that's something that definitely, like Vanshika, sort of drove my ability to think quickly in an interview situation and sort of handle any sort of questions that could be thrown. And that's prevalent not just for an interview for something like a job, but as Vanshika mentioned, a lot of the university applications and the scholarships also have video application processes or interview processes, and being able to sort of tackle any of those sorts of questions is definitely one of the many benefits that I got from being part of FIRST. And I guess another part of FIRST that sort of impacted, I guess, both Vanshika and I was being part of the First Canada Youth Council back in high school. We were on the First Canada Youth Council at the same time during our final year of high school. I'm not sure if Vanshika was on there the year before I was as well, but I was on there for my grade 12 year, and definitely get a lot of experience with getting to know the FIRST community and gaining a lot of the professional and social skills that are equally important to the technical ones that are gained from competing in FIRST. And in terms of FIRST sort of driving success after high school as well, my experience as the team captain and lead programmer of Team 4069 was a very pivotal point of the essay and application that I wrote for the Schulich Leader Scholarship, which I earned, and was also a big part of my interview process at Tesla for my job this previous summer. A lot of my technical experience that I showcased in that interview actually came from my experience in FIRST robotics. So that's just a couple of the ways that FIRST sort of continues to pass it forward after graduating high school. So we'll move on now. And we're going to look a little bit more at some of the application process for diving into a little bit more of tonight's sort of more core topic, which is obviously scholarship applications.
Yeah, so the important thing of an application process is to find these applications, find the scholarships that you're going to apply to. And my biggest advice is list down all the scholarships that you have found and cross out all the scholarships that you've applied to, because oftentimes you'll find that a lot of your essays are going to start to look very similar, and you're going to start to go crazy because you're applying to tens of thousands of scholarships and you're going to lose track. So first thing, write down the scholarships you're applying to, cross out the ones that you've applied to. And it's also important to maybe like add like a little star beside scholarships that you think are similar, because that's going to help you when you start writing, because they're going to think, oh wait, I can actually use a lot of what I talked about in this scholarship in this other scholarship. And they're all going to branch to have, you know, similar ideas as well. And it can help cut down a lot of your time. And, you know, finding these scholarships could be going on your high school scholarship board. My high school thankfully had a PDF where it listed all the scholarships that you could find, what the due date for them were, what the criteria was for them. And that really helped me because I could narrow down really quickly which ones I wanted to apply to and when I needed to apply to them. And I talked to my guidance counselors, and you know, your guidance counselors are often going to be the people who will nominate you for some scholarships as well. Like, you know, Schulich, how Tyler won his, and he can talk more about it. But a lot of other scholarships require nominations. And unfortunately, I did not know about Schulich when I was in high school. And that's one of my greatest regrets is not looking hard enough for it and missing the deadline. So make sure that you are pressing your guidance counselors and your teachers to nominate you on these things, because you do not want to miss out on a 100K scholarship that will help you get through university loan free. And, you know, there's other scholarships like entrance scholarships. So based on your GPA, certain universities will give you 2,000, 5,000, a wide range of money just so you can go to school with them. Like for me, I won the entrance scholarship for U of T, and that really helped me. You know, it wasn't a lot, but it still is a good amount to, you know, help you get into university and pay off some of the tuition that you're going to have, because tuition is pretty expensive. And there's also other scholarships that universities will have on their own, such as, you know, for U of T, we have like the Lester B. Pearson Scholarship. And so it's important to not only look on your high school, within your high school for scholarships. It's important to go to the specific universities you want to go to and look at what scholarships they're going to have, because a lot of the universities are partnered with FIRST and will offer FIRST Canada scholarships, which are really, really good. And, you know, it's important to stay up to date and just research. Make sure that you get all of your recommendation letters that you need ahead of time. Make sure that you plan when all the due dates are for everything, and just, you know, make your list. If there's one thing you want to take away from this, make a list.
Awesome. Yeah, so sort of some of the things that Vanshika touched on at the end there have a lot to deal with scheduling out your time. And that's definitely something that's super important when you're going about the application process, because you know, the deadlines, when you first see them, they might seem far away at first. You know, it's really easy to sort of just slip into the habit that it's, oh, you know, that's a long way away. And then all of a sudden you know, it creeps right up on you, and then you're having to rush at the last minute. And that's something that you always want to avoid when you're doing a scholarship application. You know, you're going to be busy, especially as someone who's a member of a FIRST team. There's going to be, you know, frequently there's lots of times, you know, either late in the build shop or working on projects to help your team, or other extracurriculars as well, of course. So it's important to be able to schedule your time in advance in order to, yeah, not have that big rush at the last minute. And something that's really important when it comes to scheduling well in advance is your references. So a lot of applications will have references, and you know, some great people to ask for some of those letters of recommendation and references could be mentors on your team or other teachers within your high school. I know personally for me, when I applied for scholarships, I had references both from the lead mentor of my team, from a coach of a competitive sport that I played in high school, as well as some other teachers from within my high school. So those are some great people who are, you know, lots of times teachers and mentors will definitely be open to writing you a letter of reference, but it's important to respect their time as well, and not you know, be asking for a letter of reference when there's maybe 48 hours until the deadline, and then they have to move things around in their own schedule in order to get those to you, and that might not be something that they're able to accommodate. So it's important to pick your references and make sure that you're asking for those letters of recommendation early, so that they're not sort of backed into a corner at the last minute as well. Something else that you can do to sort of help ease that process for people who may be writing you a letter of recommendation is providing them with some information that you'd like them to include in those letters of recommendation, or just different points, different parts of your character that you'd like them to touch upon. And I guess the most important part of that whole note is leaving yourself lots of time at the end so that you can review your application, which we're going to get into in a couple of slides here. But first, Vanshika is going to talk about the actual writing of the application process, maybe the most fun part of the application process.
I know, I saved the best part of the presentation for myself, writing your application. I personally, I feel like writing your application is the best part because you learn so much about yourself. You will be writing down things that you're like, wow, I can't even believe I did this. And you're gonna pat yourself on the back thinking, wow, I accomplished a whole lot in my high school career. And so the best way to do that is write down everything that comes to your mind, whether that be in like bullet points or whether that be you just free typing out everything that comes to your mind, whichever method works best for you. Just find a way to write down everything. I personally had a Google Doc open and I sat there. I gave myself an hour and I was like, okay, for 1 hour, I'm just going to try to jot down everything that comes to my mind that I did, starting from grade 9 up into grade 12. And I sat there for an hour and I realized, wow, I have 100 points to talk about. How did that happen? In 4 years, especially during COVID, I was like, I gained so much experience and I have so much to talk about. How am I gonna, my biggest problem was how am I gonna make this very concise and meet the word limit? And so once you write everything down, it's really easy to look at all of your applications and say, okay, this application really wants me to talk about myself. So maybe I can talk about, these 5 points and make those the core part of my essay. And then if you look at another application, maybe it's very technical. They want to know what you do in STEM specifically. And you can be like, well, I'm part of FIRST. I can talk about all these crazy things that I did in FIRST robotics. And you can just be able to, it's very easy to figure out how your essay is going to end up looking when you have all your ideas on a plate in front of you. And you know what? Make it personal to you. No one has the same story as you. Everything that you experience is very unique to you. You might have similar stories to someone else on your team, but they didn't go through the exact same, challenges and didn't gain the exact same skills as you did. Because everyone learns differently and everyone learns different things. And make multiple copies of what you're writing. I could not tell you how many copies of First Scholarship essays that I had. Probably by the end of it, I had like 5 different versions of everything. That was like the best part because when I went back to read it, I was like, I actually don't like how I wrote this, but I kind of like how I wrote something in this essay. And then eventually all those 5 essays turned into one big essay that was like the perfect thing for me. And I was like, you know what? It's 11:50 p.m. This is due at 11:59 p.m. This is what I'm going to submit now. But don't submit it at 11:50 p.m. Submit it a couple days earlier. Definitely do that. But highlight every part of your first experience, every single bit of it, because when people are reviewing your scholarships and they see that you're from First Canada, well, they already know you're smart. But they want to know how smart you are and how you gain the skills that you did. So you can talk about from beginning to end, maybe you were a recruit. You joined the team, you were scared, you didn't know what to do. So then maybe you met with one mentor and you really resonated with them. So now you stuck with that mentor. They trained you how to use a lathe. Now you know how to use a lathe. Now you're building robot parts. And, step by step, you're now at, provincial championships and you're a senior member. And now you're teaching other people how to do things on the team. And so make your essay a story. That was one of the key advices that I got. And that's one of the best, compliments that I've ever gotten about my essays is my essay was memorable because I made a story. I made it personal. No one wants to read a ChatGPT essay, especially in this day and age. No one wants to read that. You want to make it personal to you, and that's the most important thing. And talk about how FIRST has impacted your life, not within yourself, but also your community. What have you done with the skills that you learned, and how have you applied that to your community? For me, my biggest thing was I gained a lot of confidence. Grade 9 was a big transition for me, especially going from a different high school and, everybody from my middle school kind of dispersed into different high schools. So I was going into high school where I didn't really know a lot of people, and I went from middle school that had maybe 300 kids to a high school that had 500 kids. And so I was not very confident. And then eventually, when I got on the team, I did a bunch of interviews, like I said, and then I became a senior member, and I was super, super confident in myself, and I knew that I was smart. And using that confidence, I went on to be the co-president of the student council at my high school, which grade 9 me would probably never have done. I wasn't even part of student council in grade 9 because I was so intimidated by everyone on there. But there was so much confidence that I gained, and I talked about that in my interview. I said, you know what? As a brown woman in STEM, there's so many challenges that I know I face right now, and I know there's going to be so many more challenges I'm going to face later on in my career. But the confidence that I gained on 2056, I know that that's what's going to help me pave the first path to my transition and my journey in STEM. And because of that confidence that I gained, I know that I'm going to be able to take a seat at the table as a woman of color and be like, you know what, I deserve to be here, and this is why I deserve to be here. So make sure that you really, paint your own picture in your essays, because it's very important. And oftentimes, a lot of the people who are going to read your scholarship, from different companies, they're going to remember you when you submit your applications for an internship. They're going to be like, oh, this person actually won a scholarship with us. We should hire them for an internship because they were so awesome that we decided to give them all this money. So make sure that you make it personal. That is the one key thing that I want you to take from this. And you know what? Tyler's going to talk about how you review it.
Yes, so perhaps a less exciting part than the writing of the applications, but an equally important process for sure. In my experience, it'll take you longer to review your applications than to write them, and that's how it should be. When you're first jotting down all of your ideas, like Vanshika said, you get a lot of ideas sort of out in front of you at once, and you're able to sort of to put together a bunch of ideas to sort of craft the story that you want to tell. But then it's important to be able to sort of take a step back and refine what you're presenting in terms of that application. In my experience, I found it super, super helpful to get someone with writing experience to actually help with that application process, whether it's maybe someone on your team who helps with award applications. Maybe that's someone who could give you a hand. In my case, it was an English teacher at my high school who I went to for advice and for asking them to lend a hand in reviewing my applications. And that was something that was super beneficial to sort of trim down that application and ensure that it was concise and, as Vanshika said, sort of crafted into a story that was enjoyable to read rather than just sort of another application that takes on the same form of a lot of the other applications that would be read. So that's an important piece, is to get someone else to review your own writing, because you also don't want to sort of be faced with that confirmation bias of sort of saying, oh, like I wrote it and I know that I did a good job. So having sort of a fresh pair of eyes reading your own work can sort of provide a more balanced and realistic view of where that application is and what you can do to sort of improve upon that. And also leverage your network. It doesn't always just have to be someone who is a teacher as well, or someone who's an adult more senior. So as I had mentioned, I won the Schulich Leader Scholarship, and someone from my high school this past year also won the Schulich Leader Scholarship at McMaster. And when she was applying, she reached out to me for help in writing her own application. And First Canada alumni and people who are part of your FIRST network are definitely going to be open to helping you with those sorts of things. I know for me, it was definitely a nice way to sort of give back for helping with that application. And obviously all of us within the FIRST community want each other to do well. So that's something that we're very open to doing. So yeah, reach out to your network and leverage your network. There are a lot of very successful alumni and even maybe mentors, as well as students who may still be in high school who would be able to help you refine your application and help you sort of make it the best that it can be when you go to submit that application. So we're going to touch on FIRST scholarships a little bit. I know that Jaylene has a note on FIRST Canada scholarships at the end, and Michelle's going to talk about FIRST scholarships down in the States as well, and some messages from FIRST HQ. I was just going to touch a little bit at this point on the FIRST scholarship at McMaster. So as I mentioned in the beginning, I attend McMaster University, and I was one of the winners of the FIRST Canada scholarship at McMaster, and that was a really excellent experience. Not just in terms of the financial benefits, which are obviously definitely something that everyone is looking for when you go looking for these scholarships, but also in terms of the opportunities outside of the classroom that came with that scholarship. And at McMaster, the winners of the FIRST Canada Scholarship also are given access to research opportunities in terms of they are sort of in my first year, my resume was shipped off to a book of resumes with the winners of the the First Canada Scholarship, and professors and other industry partners who are closely related to the university have an opportunity to look through those resumes and conduct interviews based on those resumes that are given out to them. So I ended up landing my first co-op job essentially through the First Canada Scholarship, where my resume was distributed to a company that I ended up, working as a software development intern during my first summer of university. And that was almost directly through the First Canada Scholarship. So that's a really great experience. And I know Vanshika as well was awarded that scholarship, although she didn't end up attending McMaster. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that experience as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wasn't, with Tyler when I won my scholarship. I didn't get to go to McMaster, but I did get to win the McMaster First Scholarship, which was like the greatest thing ever. I remember opening up, the application, like congratulations, you won during my calculus class and freaking out. And then my teacher was like freaking out. He's like, "Oh my God, what do you mean you won so much money?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I feel like this is fake." And so, it was like the back and forth, but eventually when it came to me that the realization came to me that I won it, I was like, this is super crazy. And I was reflecting on, how I actually got my scholarship. And a lot of it was, like I said, writing out everything that I thought about myself. And I knew that McMaster they sponsor, first events. So oftentimes, a lot of teams will go to McMaster and compete for, FRC competitions. So in the back of my head, I knew that, they are avid supporters of FIRST. So I'm going to tailor my, resume to be very FIRST related. Although I did touch upon, topics of other things I did in high school, like, student council, I made sure to really make my main focus FIRST robotics because I knew that's what they wanted to look at and that's what they wanted to know. And my application was a journey. I wrote down, grade 9, I was scared. I don't know who my friends were. I don't know what I was going to do with my life. I don't know what I was going to do with anything. And then I go into grade 10 and COVID happened. And during that time, a lot of people, I think, in many teams kind of, went into hiding and no one really did anything for a little bit. There are a few core members who were participating in like, online judged awards presentations, the game design challenge awards. And, a lot of that was happening. And because I never had like a real experience on the team, because, it was just grade 9, I talked to my mentor on my like the team, the teacher who led the team, and I was like, okay, I don't want this to happen to anybody else in grade 9. They're coming in, they probably really, really want to be part 2056, but COVID's happening, they can't be in person, like what should we do? And so we brainstormed and we came up with this certificate program. And the certificate program was a completely virtual way of learning more about the team as well as FIRST robotics. And so, students would come into these virtual seminars, they would learn about programming, they would learn about, chairman's awards, the electrical side of the team, the mechanical side of the team. They would learn everything about the team. And they would get, a virtual stamp of approval for, the amount of technical lectures that they went to, as well as how many, free electives that they chose. So any 3 seminars of their choosing that they wanted to go to. And based on, the interest that the students gave, a lot of the people came out knowing a lot more about the team. So when we were in person in, grade 11 and they were in grade 10, they were comfortable to talk to people because they knew what the team was about. They had this training way early on during COVID about what the team was about, and they had a better grasp of what the team had to offer for them, which I wish I had in grade 9 because going into it, I just see all of these grade 12 students driving the robot around, looking super cool, and I'm like, well, I don't know what this team's about. I don't know what they're doing. It just seems like they're driving a robot, which seems pretty cool, and I want to do that. But, taking the initiative to do a certificate program and talking about that in my application process was really cool because, it shows that even though I was, basically a new member on the team, I wanted to create this inclusive environment on my team, and I wanted to create this sense of teamwork and, collaboration. And I think that really resonated with the people who read my scholarship, obviously, since they wanted to offer it. But, talking about things like that, and then, going on to grade 11 and seeing how I tried to take more of a technical role in the team and try to learn more technical skills because, I already knew about the team and what I wanted to do now. And then going into grade 12 and becoming the operator and having more of like a problem solving, strategic type of outlook on the team and helping more with strategy and coaching and gaining those like, problem solving skills, thinking on the spot skills, and confidence. Taking for the journey was probably the reason that I think I won the scholarship. Not sure if that's accurate, but I think that's the best way to do it.
Awesome. We're going to go into a couple more tips and resources now. These are just sort of a couple of points that I put together in terms of things that really helped me when I was writing my scholarship applications. And Vanshika can feel free to chime in if you have anything to add as well. So similar to Vanshika, I found I called it like a list of everything was something that was really important when writing an application. And a lot of the applications, both for, supplementary applications just for universities, as well as scholarship applications would frequently ask you a question, something along the lines of, list everything that you've done in the past couple of years and how many hours per week you think you've dedicated to them. And that seemed to be a question that I ran into an awful lot, and something that is definitely repeatable between different scholarship applications. You don't need to sort of reinvent the wheel every time you're going to do something like that. There's an opportunity to make a good list of the things that you're proud of you accomplishing over the past couple of years, your dedication to them, and then being able to reuse a list like that for multiple different applications. Something else is sort of planning out your answers in terms of what you want to highlight for different questions. So lots of applications. I'm going to sort of phrase this in terms of the Sri Lanka application. There was a series of questions that had a maximum of 50 words, which are, a very tight time, tight restraint in terms of what you're able to include in that application. And there was a larger sort of essay style question. And obviously between those sort of different types of questions, you don't really want to repeat the same things over and over again. So it's really important to be able to think hard about what you want to be able to highlight about yourself in each of those questions, and then be able to pick out pieces of your experience that allow you to sort of weave a story that will tell, sort of showcase the things that you want to be showcased in that question. So for instance, there were some different things that I wanted to highlight in some of my applications. And in terms of like dedication and work ethic, I would use something like my part-time job to showcase my dedication and work ethic. In terms of wanting to showcase teamwork, I would use something like competitive athletics, and then robotics to showcase something like technical ability, as well as time management and leadership. And you can see how I would sort of pick different things that I would want to showcase for that application, and then pick different pieces of my life or different things that I had done throughout high school in order to sort of craft that story and showcase the different parts of my personality and parts of my life that I wanted to highlight to the people who would be reading the scholarship application. That's sort of especially important when you're dealing with very open-ended questions, such as the essay style question for the Schulich Leader Scholarship, where it's sort of just a why would you make a good leader? And that's a question like that is something that shows up really frequently on scholarship applications, and can be a really tough one to answer because there's not a lot of direction in terms of what the person reviewing the application will actually be looking for. So it's important to, rather than sort of just spewing a resume of everything you've done, it's important to, again, as we've talked about a couple times tonight, sort of creating a story and then showcasing the points that you want to showcase. So picking the things that you want to showcase and then using your experience to sort of bolster those points about your personality. And another really tough constraint, as sort of mentioned, can be a word limit. And that's something that you're going to have to deal with in any application because people don't want to be reading applications, for hours and hours on end. So it's really important to read closely through your application and sort of cut down on the fluff. That's something that I thought was really important when tackling my applications. It's important to of course, be able to showcase all the things that you want to highlight, but you can showcase a lot more when you're able to sort of remove a lot of filler out of what you're saying. So I think that is a skill that's really important to develop, is being able to take all the filler out of your application and sort of being able to get straight to the point with what you're saying. So of course, be able to highlight the points that you want to make, but be able to say them in a very concise and clear way. And that's bringing back to a previous point, getting someone to review can be a great way to sort of help you cut down on the unnecessary detail that doesn't really help your point. And sort of the last piece of advice that I'll give is that it's really important to be able to brag a little bit. Don't be afraid to showcase what makes you great. Obviously being part of a FIRST team, you have a lot more experience than a lot of other students in your shoes have. And it's really great to be able to showcase that to someone who's going to be reading your application. Obviously it's important to to be respectful in terms of what you're showcasing. You know, you don't want to brag too much, if you know what I mean, but it is important to not be timid in showing what you've accomplished throughout high school and what you're able to do, because you have lots of experience and lots of skills, and it's important to show that to someone who's going to be reviewing your application, that you would make a great candidate for their school or for their scholarship, and being able to use your first experience and your other experience in high school to really bolster your claim in that.
Yeah, and I definitely think that, outlines save time. I'm not sure if a lot of you know, but there is a very prestigious off-season event that happens for FIRST Robotics. It's called Indiana Robotics Invitational, IRI. And during that event, they give 3 scholarships out. And so I was very fortunate to receive one of those scholarships. And the reason I received one of those scholarships is because thankfully that event was in July, so I had a lot of time to prepare. They weren't like the scholarship essays that are in December or January or November. And so for that scholarship, I was so quickly able to draft up my outline for it because I was able to take bits and pieces of every single scholarship essay that I've written, find out, where all the fluff was, like Tyler said, cut that down, take out all the repetitive topics that I had, figure out how I wanted to word everything, and then, an essay that I would have taken maybe like 3 to 4 weeks to write, it only took me 2 weeks, which is still a long time, but it's, but, a lot of review, like Tyler said. But, having an outline, and you'll realize when you're writing scholarships that you're writing about the same thing over and over again, but just in very different ways based on what the application's asking for. And then once you write like a few essays, you'll find your groove and you'll be like, okay, this is a lot easier. Now I know what I want to write about, and everything will be a lot easier. So, even for your first scholarship, try to write, 2 different drafts of how you want to approach it, and then it'll get a lot easier. And networking opportunities. Being an alumni comes with a lot of cool perks. I'm not gonna lie about that. It's such a great community, no matter where you go, whether you're working at a company, whether you're at university, there's always gonna be someone who's connected to FIRST, which is super crazy to me because I went to UT thinking, a lot of my, alumni friends are going to McMaster or Waterloo. I'm not gonna have anybody. But I realized there's so many other people who went to University of Toronto, and I get to be a mentor to a lot of, the new coming, freshmen at U of T, and I get to be a mentee for a lot of the upper years who are at U of T. Like my first year when I was at U of T, I was very scared. I was like, this is such a different world. There's so many exams, there's so many midterms, there's so many things going on, and a lot of courses I struggled with, but I reached out to one of the First Canada Youth Council alumni who went to U of T, and he sat down with me at 9 p.m. the day before my midterm that was at 9 a.m., and we were going through the whole course. And we were trying to find different tips and tricks of how to approach problems, and I was super, super grateful for FIRST Robotics in that moment because I probably would not have done that well in that midterm if I didn't have him that night. And just being able to, reach out to people and have that kind of connection, it makes it a lot easier. Because when you are a frosh going into university, you'll see thousands and thousands of people who are all dyed purple in engineering, running around crazy. And, it's going to be hard to make friends. But when you realize, oh, wait, that person's wearing something from a team that I remember from competition. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go talk to them and ask them about their team. And, you initiate that conversation, and then suddenly you have a friend. And then that friend's gonna have a friend, and you're gonna have so many other friends from that. And so, it's a great way to stay connected and find that community university. Make a group of friends who are part of FIRST Robotics, and you guys can lean on each other, and you guys can be like, hey, do you want to carpool or commute together to Ontario Champs and volunteer? Or do you want to help me mentor my team, or do you want to mentor this team together? And then you're gonna meet so many other people. And one of the biggest things that I tell people now, join LinkedIn. It is like the biggest thing right now. I am all over LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'm always looking for more connections. But LinkedIn is like the best way to find people on FIRST Robotics because you can scroll through a profile and be like, oh, this person was on this team. And then you can reach out to them and be like, hey, like, I realized you're on this team and you go to this university. I'm looking to go to that university as well. And, I would love for some tips on how you got in or what your application process was about. And then, that's going to be another person you can add to your list of people who can review your essays and, your scholarship applications. Like, I personally have had so many people reach out to me to be part of like panels or, be part of, um, a mentor on their team. And oftentimes, I'll be like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll be super open to doing whatever. Or people will reach out to me on Instagram even, and we'll be like, hey, I've never met you, but I saw your face all over, the First Canada website because you're on the youth council. But, I really want to apply for the scholarship. Would you be able to help me? And 9 times out of 10, I will be able to sit down and, take 30 minutes out of my day to look at your resume, regardless of who you are, if we've met before, if we haven't. But if I'm able to do that, I know so many other people will be able to do that for you as well. So join LinkedIn, connect with people, reach out. Don't be afraid. Trust me, once you send that message, I know you're gonna have the anxiety of being like, oh my God, did they open it yet? Did they read it yet? I do think I'm crazy for asking them, but no one thinks you're crazy for asking, unless you reach out to them, you'll never know, you know? It'll always be, oh, I wonder if, it could have been different. So take out the what ifs and just shoot them a message, whoever that is. And volunteer at FIRST events. There's going to be so many people who are your age, older or younger, who be volunteering. And, they might have so many different connections that are going to be good for you in the future. Maybe they can connect you with an employee who's looking for someone who has the same skill sets as you. And like me personally, I'm doing my co-op at Pratt& Whitney, and they're owned by RTX, who sponsors FIRST Robotics, as you can see in their huge logo when, the game gets released for kickoff. But one of the main things that my boss looked at was the fact that I was on FIRST Robotics. I think a good 15 minutes of my interview was talking about FIRST Robotics in high school, and it was super casual, and we were talking about 2056 as well as like, some of the teams that my plant sponsors. And from that I got to meet other people at my company who mentor teams in Ontario for FIRST Robotics. And it creates such a great like community, and it makes things so much easier because you're less afraid to talk to them. And I think that's the best way. And companies like seeing the product of their investment. So when companies like Hatch, RTX, when they sponsor FIRST Canada, and they see that you're applying to their companies for, a job or an internship or anything, they're going to see that and they're going to put you at the top of the pile because they know what these students are capable of. And that's the biggest thing. And that's what your leverage is. Tyler, do you have any tips?
No, that's everything for me. I definitely echo all of your comments about finding a good community, especially FIRST Robotics alumni. Vanshika doesn't actually know this, I don't think, but her operator partner in 2056 is actually one of my good friends. He was on my floor in first year. So yeah, lots of great connections you can make with lots of FIRST Canada alumni and FIRST alumni all over. So I'll stop sharing and pass it back over to Jaylene.
That was amazing. Thank you both for sharing all those tips and tricks. Every time I was like, oh, I could add something, you all covered it. One thing I will add to Vanshika's comment about LinkedIn, if you put FIRST, we talked about this actually at our FIRST Canada Youth Summit on the weekend for our students, but if you put FIRST on your LinkedIn, it is going to elevate your LinkedIn. You're going to have access to, like Vanshika said, those connections that people are making. If you're making it with other FIRST alum, if you have FIRST actually on your LinkedIn, it is so much easier to connect with you, and then you find other things that you are connected on. So even for myself and other FIRST Canada staff, we were sharing with students, if you're a FIRST alum and you have FIRST Canada or FIRST on your LinkedIn, we will almost immediately press connect. So we want to know that, and then you'll also be able to access our FIRST Canada alumni network, FIRST Canada, alumni network on LinkedIn, and then there's also a FIRST HQ alumni network, so you can access FIRST alum from all over the world. I do want to pass it over to Michelle now to talk about our HQ portal that we have access to as well, and then I'll close it off with some of our FIRST Canada scholarships.
Awesome. Thanks, Jaylene. I have no slides prepared. Even if I had prepared slides, I wouldn't need them because honestly, Tyler and Vanshika, that was truly awesome. Thank you for all of that and doing this professionally, right? Like helping people with scholarships, helping people with job stuff. It is the exact same advice that I'm giving or that I'm hearing. So if anyone here is thinking, oh, well, that was their experience, I promise you that it is, very typical and very shared. A couple of things that I want to really kind of reinforce that they mentioned. Just a few things before I pass it over to Jaylene. And once I'm done kind of sharing stuff, I'll drop a bunch of links into the chat, including to both of those LinkedIn groups that she mentioned, both the FIRST Canada alumni and the FIRST more globally alumni group, right? Not FIRST Global alumni group. That's a separate thing, but FIRST for everyone. But a couple of things that I think are really important. First is that all of that advice, well, it's super relevant right now when you're looking for university and applying for scholarships, it is just as relevant advice when you start to look at internship opportunities or co-ops or full-time jobs. It all comes back to those exact sort of things that they were sharing over and over again, which is like knowing what your story is. A not so nice way to say that is like, how do you sell yourself in that position for the scholarship, for the admission, for the job, whatever that is? How are you positioning your attributes, the things that make you you? And some of the questions I like to ask myself when I'm pulling together those documents, whether it's for scholarship applications, where I'm at in my life, there's a lot of like board applications and weird things that I end up doing. But job applications, everything else, there's this idea of one document that you can keep going and pull information from is so helpful. I would recommend that you ask yourself, kind of 3 questions that can get you started even before you start to look at scholarship applications. And those are, what do you want to do? Like, what are you writing these applications for? Is it because you want to go to university? That's not your entire goal, right? Like your goal is to go to university and so what do you want to do with that? What are your hopes and dreams, and how do you see that fitting into university? And to help you construct your story and to identify the right experiences that you have to talk about in all of those different essays, whether it's going to be, the sports stuff that you had, the teamwork that you were learning, things that you were doing on your robotics team, et cetera. What is important to you? And not just like what's important, but like what makes you you? Like, how do you view the world? For me, I'll give you a little bit of information. So I don't have an engineering degree. I'm also not a FIRST alum. I mentioned I'm from the States. I'm originally from Michigan, which is a crazy thing to say that I am from Michigan and not a FIRST alum. I was a theater person, and I very much still am, but I found a way that that experience and the things that I love about theater, shared community, the technology, quite honestly, if you've ever been in a theater and you look up, the lights are so cool. And bringing people together and solving problems together, whether that's how to put something on the stage, whether it is creating a robot, whether it's trying to solve the bigger things that we're all working on a daily basis, but really figuring out what's important to you can help you identify how you want to approach those questions. And then lastly is like, who are you? What are the 3 or 4 things that you would use to describe yourself? How would you want to present yourself to the world? And then the last thing that I'll share there, both Vanshika and Tyler mentioned a lot about putting your work in on the front end to start that outline, and then writing those things should take you honestly the least amount of time. And then you're working on reviewing and editing and things of that nature. And we talked about bringing other folks into that process, having people review your essays, your applications, et cetera. I'll also offer and recommend that at that point, like when you're cleaning stuff up, that's when you want to like look to your friend ChatGPT just to say, hey, clean this up. I've written it. It's me. It's my story. But I 10 times a day, will copy an email or something that I've written and drop it into ChatGPT and just say, make this clearer, tighten this up. And then you have to go back and do that due diligence of reading it yourself and being those human eyes. But, to kind of bring that back, that's where that tool has some value. Like I said, I'll drop stuff in the chat. And then I'll also put my email there. Please let me know if there's anything I can do, even if you're sitting here saying, but I don't know a scholarship for me. Send me an email. And if I can't help you, I'll get you in touch with Jaylene.
Thanks so much, Michelle. And actually on the chat GPT part, we just at First Canada took a like an AI class, I guess, workshop, and we all came together and learned about utilizing it in the workplace and such, and make sure that your scholarship allows this. I know there's restrictions and such, and same thing in university. So be very cautious of when you're utilizing it, but you can use it. And something fun you can do is like use a certain tone of voice. So we played around with like, write this as like as if you're Albert Einstein or something like that, and you'll find to use tone of voice, but you can also do that for yourself. So if you utilize it a lot, it'll learn your tone of voice and just clean it up in that tone. But again, be careful and be cautious of utilizing these tools. They're there for us to use and get creative with, but also be cautious as you're submitting for these scholarships and such. Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up with some super cool just places to get started. This is your find to get started with. So first link, firstroboticscanada.org/scholarships. I'm gonna share my screen real quick and show you what we have specifically on here. So the top one is the SHAD scholarship. You'll notice here details and applications. Application is the link here and the deadline. So SHAD scholarship, First Robotics Canada Skilled Trade Scholarship. There are 2 of those at 2,500 Canadian, due March 15th. I think a lot of these are either due March 15th or January 31st. Mark and Redner Leadership Fund is not a scholarship specific for post-secondary education, but if you are on a team and you're interested in helping, whether it be a team member or an FLL or FTC related your organization, take a look there. It's not specifically a scholarship for post-secondary, but it's a fund that's available for various groups of people. Canadian Women in STEM Scholarship, $10,000 to 1 recipient, January 31st. Our Don Bosey Leadership and Innovation Canadian Scholarship, $5,000 to 1 recipient. Again, these are January 31st, 2025. Our Indigenous Scholarship, we have one $5,000, February 15th. And then we do have links to all of our, the ones that Tyler did mention, the most up-to-date that we have, and we are confirming some details with those schools now, as well as these ones will be listed as on the HQ portal. So I will show you that as well, if you are interested. I know most of the ones that you're going to want are going to be on our First Canada website. However, I know that sometimes there might be a couple that'll pop up on the HQ portal.
Yeah, while you're navigating there, Jaylene, right now, if you search for, there, and then you scroll down to Canada, we only have a couple of scholarships from Waterloo and a couple of those First Canada scholarships posted. But as we saw things going live on the First Canada site tonight, we'll get all of those same ones cloned over here. The other piece, and sorry to interrupt you here, is if you hit reset, and then you select under location again and all the way up to the top and select all areas. Yeah, that will show you scholarships that are not for a specific school or area. So you can all look at those as well.
There we go. Learn something new. I learned something new too. That's fantastic and super helpful, and they'll be more updated as we go. So take a look there at firstinspires.org/alumni/scholarships. Okay, any other questions that anyone has? Michelle also did add, there's the First Canada Alumni Network, so you can search that on LinkedIn. And then there's also the First Alumni Network as well as available. She also did post a tips for sharing your first experience for scholarships. Again, that's a super helpful one if you are in interviews and such. Just the question you will always get is, tell me about yourself. And it's like, well, what the heck do you want to know, right? So that's a way that you can work on that story, and your first story is so unique. Every single person's is, and it also sets you apart. And like Vanshika and Tyler both mentioned, like, you're going to utilize that story over and over, whether it's going to start in scholarships, but it's going to go through our co-ops and internships and into your job. That story is going to carry you through all those, and it's going to set you apart, especially at sponsor companies. So we're doing a lot of work in that space too to really connect you with those groups. Okay, any other questions for us? Fantastic. Okay, I just want to thank our 3 guests so much. You did excellent, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to share your wisdom and experience with our group today, whether you joined live or you're watching the recording. I do have some updates for all of you for going forward. So number 1, as Michelle did put in our chat there as well, but firstroboticscanada.org/alumni is where you're going to get access to First Canada Alumni network and stay connected with us through our LinkedIn group. And we also have a newsletter that goes out about every quarter, but basically when there's like good updates, I'll send an email. I try not to spam you because nobody wants that many emails. So I'll send you when there's good information. We have other First Canada Alumni Corner episodes available to you. So firstroboticscanada.org/alumni corner. At the bottom is all the links to the past episodes that we've had. So we did Canadian applications to Canadian universities early this year, navigating the transition between high school and post-secondary education. And coming up on December 4th, we will have volunteering within FIRST as an alum with Emily Forster on December 4th. So super excited about that one. And if you are looking for more times to connect with us, First Canada Live, there's an episode on December 3rd. It's a panel discussion with some of FRC's greatest experts on how to build a simple and effective robot. So you're going to be want to be on that one. I'm excited for it, to just listen to some of the experts in our FRC world and really share about how to build that simple and effective robot. So that'll be a good episode as well. So you can chime in twice that week for us. Okay, thank you all so much again. Thanks again to our special guests. It was so great to have you all here tonight and share tips from our alumni community. We hope to see you again very soon at our next episode or somewhere in the FIRST world. Thank you so much, everybody.